There's only one way to keep Muslim immigrants from being viciously assaulted as they just were in Russia. Aaron Saltzman says the FBI and the NYPD interrogated him for simply reading an article about ISIS. Barack Obama continues to shaft Christians. And the future of the Democratic Party is two angry old leftists screaming at each other for 2 hours to decide who hates capitalism more. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Riell Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com and on Facebook and YouTube and Tumblr and in the book Riell Truth, Stay Angry. And of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Our call-in number is 877-254-7524. My friends, I hope you enjoyed the weekend. Hope you enjoyed the Republican presidential debate. Hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. Now let's get down to cases. Item from front page. The future of the Democratic Party was two angry old leftists screaming at each other for 2 hours to decide who hates capitalism more. With the MSNBC and the Democratic Party's logos on a red background, the stage was set for a redder-than-red debate. Red was everywhere, reflected in the thick glasses of Bernie Sanders and in the garish red lipstick around Hillary Clinton's orifice of lies, and in their clamorous rants about Wall Street and the evils of capitalism that could have come from a back-alley communist pamphleteer in the 1950s. Bernie Sanders promised to end a rigged economy with socialism, which is the very definition of a rigged economy. Both candidates showed their socialist bona fides by rattling off the names of the corporations they hated the most. Bernie Sanders cheered normalizing relations with Cuba, ridiculing the idea that being a communist is objectionable. But he did express some concerns about the nuclear weapons being held by his fellow socialists in the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. Unquote. My friends, common sense should prevail at all times. Logic should prevail at all times. The most effective economic system the world has ever seen by far is capitalism. So when people come out against capitalism, they're either woefully ignorant or ideologues to the point of being completely forgettable. The Democrats hate capitalism, always have. They want to replace it with a system that doesn't work. We've got to stop them. Item from truthout.org. NBC News blared the headline, Hillary Clinton struggles to explain $600K in Goldman Sachs speaking fees this morning in response to a revealing answer that Hillary Clinton gave in a CNN town hall meeting reporting, quote, "Well, I don't know," said Hillary. "That's what they offered." That's what she said when asked about the fees by CNN host Anderson Cooper in a forum televised by the network with less than a week away from the Granite State's first-in-the-nation primary. Clinton had a lucrative turn on the paid speaking circuit after she stepped down as Secretary of State, which rival Bernie Sanders has used as fodder against her. In analyzing Hillary's financial relationship with Wall Street, Carmen Yerusu writes for Truth Out that, quote, "Collectively, she and her husband Bill have parlayed their political experience into at least $125 million in speaking fees alone. According to Bloomberg, Hillary was paid $12 million in the 16 months after leaving as Secretary of State. Knowing she'd likely run for president, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, Morgan Stanley, and other big Wall Street corporations gladly paid her $2.9 million in speaking fees. Given that a primary focus on the Bernie Sanders campaign is to oppose the ability of Wall Street and wealthy one-percenters to have an inordinate impact on elections, as well as to expose how they foster income inequality and engage in high-risk financial practices, Hillary Clinton's response last night appeared astonishingly bumbling and disingenuous. Furthermore, the issue of her speaking fees, particularly from the 3 Goldman Sachs speeches she gave for approximately $675,000 in remunerations, has been repeatedly brought up in debates and from reporters. Given that she said she will not ask Congress to reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act, and serious concerns exist about her vague assertions that she'll get tough on Wall Street, it's a challenge for many voters in the United States to take seriously her claim that she's going to reform the financial industry. Unquote. My friends, Hillary's claims cannot be taken seriously. Hillary herself cannot be taken seriously. And the millions of Americans who support her and will actually vote for her also cannot be taken seriously. I want to know why Hillary Clinton isn't already en route to a jail cell. Item from McClatchydC.com. Hillary Clinton accuses Bernie Sanders of engaging in the most negative campaign in the history of Democratic presidential nomination contests, breaking his decades-long pledge to run only positive campaigns. Clinton said Sanders ran a negative TV ad against her, but the 30-second spot never mentions her by name. She claims Sanders is attacking her when he brags that he doesn't benefit from a super political action committee. He does point out that she gets money from PACs, but is careful not to say that the money influenced her. She accused him of being sexist when the top aide said Sanders would consider her to be his vice president. But that's a common comment about all candidates. Sanders said it was a joke and cited his strong pro-woman voting record. Democratic voters in early nominating states, including those that support Clinton, say they don't see Sanders' campaign as anywhere near how Clinton labels it. She and Sanders are campaigning in similar ways, they say, and both are far, far less critical than the Republican candidates for president. Unquote. My friends, I don't think Bernie Sanders was being derogatory towards women when he said he might consider offering Hillary the vice presidential slot. I do think, however, that he was showing that he's a moron, because only a moron would want Hillary Clinton anywhere near his administration. Item from the Washington Post: the U.S. presidential candidates fight over the best way to address the influx of Central Americans across the southwest border, with debate about building walls and deporting immigrants. The nation's public schools have opened their doors, taking responsibility for helping tens of thousands of children find their footing here. It's not an easy task. Many of the new arrivals don't speak much English and are behind academically. They often come with scars, having fled desperate poverty or violence or both. Many endure difficult journeys, sometimes leaving their families behind or rejoining parents in the U.S. after years of separation. Stop. My friends, these kids deserve an education. The first thing they have to learn is that law counts. That a society cannot exist unless laws are adhered to. You can't flout the law. So lesson one, ship their asses back across the border. It's Monday, and it's Riell Truth, and I'll be right back.
I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading, and I would like to encourage everyone to make sure they are prepared financially as the Federal Reserve continues to destroy the value of the dollar. Since the closing of the gold window in 1971, the Federal Reserve has led the way in the explosion of debt and the devaluing of your money. They openly say that they need 2% inflation, which simply means they hope to devalue your money, and they want to do this every single year, year after year. I know it's hard to understand, but the Federal Reserve believes in prosperity through debt and growth via the devaluation of your future. To learn more about how to protect yourself, visit us at allamericangold.com or call us at 800-951-0592 and protect yourself against the devaluing of your money.
And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Truth. I am, after all, Howard Riell. I have got some good stuff for you video-wise. We'll go back to my good buddy Wild Bill for America. He's got some thoughts on Donald Trump and how Christians specifically relate to him. Let's listen.
Hello everybody, Wild Bill for America here. As you all know, I've been really enjoying the way Donald Trump has been shaking up the good old boys club in Washington, D.C. I've said so in a couple of videos, and sure as shooting, I have been called out by some members of the Christian community. Here's part of a letter that I got from John. He writes, "Bill, I'm so sorry you are just fixated on supporting Trump, which in my eyes makes you the hypocrite of the century. If you had done any vetting of Trump, you would know that he is not anything close to being a Christian. In fact, Trump is, for the most part, anti-Christ. So please explain to me your support." He goes on to write, "Ted Cruz is the only devout Christian in the race. If we are to save the USA, it can only be accomplished with Ted Cruz as president." Well, John, I am a Ted Cruz guy. I've met his dad several times, and I've done videos strongly supporting Cruz, even pointing out that he is the only candidate who has been consistently conservative. I was the MC at the Orlando Ted Cruz rally, but I'm also thrilled to pieces to see Donald Trump striking terror into the corrupt, godless left that has seized control of our nation and is poised to rain down serious persecution on our heads. Nobody else has ever scared the evil left this bad, not even Ted. Now, John, I want you to answer some questions. If your child broke her leg and the only orthopedic surgeon on duty at the hospital was the best in the nation, but also an arrogant, loudmouth unbeliever, would you refuse to let him repair your daughter's leg? I bet you would be thrilled to have the top surgeon fix your daughter's leg. Well, basically, that's the condition our nation is in. She's broken. She's in pain and in desperate need of repair. So, John, is it possible for a non-believer to secure the southern border and crack down on the invasion of our nation by foreign nationals? Is it possible for a non-believer with decades of hugely successful business, finance, and economic experience to restore some sanity to government spending? Is it possible for a non-believer to dramatically strengthen our military and take steps to give them a much-needed morale boost? Is it possible for a non-believer to vigorously investigate the corruption of Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration? If Trump accomplished those things, would it not be worth having him in office for 4 years? Now, I'm quite certain that one of your major concerns is the tsunami of moral filth that is sweeping this nation. My videos clearly show that that's one of my top concerns too. Well, guess where responsibility for that lands? Right on the Christian church. It's not up to us to fix the military or the economy or to enforce criminal laws. That's Caesar's job. If the moral foundations of the USA are crumbling away, that is our fault and our mess to take on. And that's why I joined the Black Robe Regiment. American Christians rising up, breaking free of the left-wing gag order that has kept the church out of American culture and shut up behind church doors. I do hope that Ted Cruz comes out on top, but I also want to see the Trump phenomenon mortally wound the Republican Party in D.C. that betrays the people at every turn. Ideally, we will see a Trump-Cruz ticket. Now, if Trump gets the nomination, please tell me that you're not one of those who will be staying home on election day because you're just too pure and holy to vote for a non-believer. You do that, and I will nominate you for the hypocrite of the century. Folks, if you agree with this message, please consider clicking the link below to become a monthly donor. This is Wild Bill for America. Thank you for watching, and America bless God again.
My friends, I love Wild Bill for America. He always makes good common sense. No matter what religion you are, he's got a clear view of what's happening in America. He wants what's best for America and for Americans, and so he will always have a spot on my show. In fact, I'm going to bring him back after the next commercial break, and we're going to hear what he thinks about another topic, so stay tuned. I mean, stay tuned anyway. You know what I meant. Item from NationalReview.com. Over the past 5 years in Syria's civil war, the United States has admitted a grand total of 53 Syrian Christian refugees, alone Yazidi, and fewer than 10 Druze, Baha'is, and Zoroastrians combined. That's so few of Syrian refugees coming here are non-Muslim minorities is due to American reliance on the United Nations Refugee Resettlement Program that disproportionately excludes them. Past absolute totals of Syrian refugees to the U.S. under this program were small, but as the Obama administration now ramps up refugee quotas by tens of thousands, it would be unconscionable to continue with a process that has consistently forsaken some of the most defenseless and egregiously persecuted of those fleeing Syria. Unquote. So folks, let's put to bed for all time the thought that Barack Obama wants to bring people here who are fleeing tyranny. He wants to bring Muslims here. If there are Christians or members of other faiths who are also facing tyranny, he doesn't give a rat's ass. Item from Reuters. Israel plans to increase the number of entry permits it grants to Palestinian workers, Palestinian and Israeli sources said on Monday, in a drive to ease economic hardships which have contributed to a wave of Palestinian attacks. About 55,000 Palestinians currently have permits to work in Israel, mostly in construction and agriculture, the Bank of Israel says. They must clear Israeli security checks before the documents are issued. Excuse me. An additional 30,000 undocumented Palestinian laborers also enter Israel each day. The new plan would raise the number of Palestinian workers vetted by Israeli security officials. Stop. My friends, the takeaway here is that people do not learn. For almost 70 years, Israel has been lashed by terrorism coming from Palestinians. Forget the last 70 years. Since the 1920s, Palestinian Arabs have been slaughtering Jews, shooting Jews, driving over Jews, molesting, raping, beheading Jews, and Israel continues to bring them into the country. Notice I'm not talking about taking the Palestinians who are there and getting the hell rid of them, which would be even smarter. They continue to import Palestinians. It's like someone continuing to drink poison for 70 years. I don't get it. I do get it, but I don't get it. Item from thehill.com. Donald Trump said he'd be able to look into the eyes of Syrian refugee children to tell them they cannot come to schools in America in light of concerns about safely vetting refugees. We don't know where their parents come from. They have no documentation whatsoever, Trump said on Monday during a town hall in New Hampshire. I've talked to the greatest legal people, spoken to the greatest security people. There's absolutely no way of saying where these people come from. They may be from Syria, they may be from ISIS, they may be ISIS related. During the event, a man who said he was from Connecticut told Trump about plans to relocate Syrian families into the community and let their children come to schools. When asked whether he'd be able to look at these children to tell them they couldn't go to school, Trump said, quote, "I can look in their faces and say you can't come here." The crowd applauded his answer. Trump called for Gulf states in the Middle East to take more initiative on resettling refugees, even with some American monetary support. He also added many people who migrate are young men with few women and children, and questioned how they're able to bring some possessions with them while fleeing. You see them on cell phones. Where do they get their cell phones, Trump said. This is a migration. They have no anything, but they have cell phones with ISIS flags on them and worse. He said this asking how those who migrate are able to pay their cell phone bills, unquote. Well, that's a damn good question. And also, I would ask the fellow who asked Trump whether he could look in these kids' faces and say, you can't come here. I got a better question. If someone were to rape this gentleman's daughter, could you look the rapist in the face and say, you have to go to jail? Well, of course you could. Obviously you could. Because the rapist will have egregiously violated the law. Which brings us to the Syrians, who have egregiously violated our law. Now, if you're going to tell me you can't hold children responsible, then fine. I'm going to take my 10-year-old son, I'm going to send him into a convenience store, and I want him to come out with arms full of merchandise that he didn't pay for. After all, you can't blame a kid, right? You can blame a kid. And you can blame Washington, D.C. for allowing the outrage of Americans' immigration laws to be flouted, to be broken with impunity. If you want to teach these kids lessons, you want to teach them how to be good people, you want to teach them how to live in the United States one day, fine. Teach them respect for law. Teach them respect for national sovereignty. That's a lesson they will carry with them all their lives. And as long as they're carrying things, let them carry that lesson back to Syria. Item from BareNakedIslam.com. A group of 51 Muslim migrants were brutally assaulted outside a nightclub in Murmansk, Russia, after they groped and molested women at a nightclub. The Muslims had previously been ordered to leave Norway for bad behavior and tried their luck in Russia. What they didn't realize when they went out clubbing in Murmansk is that Russians have less tolerance when it comes to sexual assault on local women than other European countries. The Muslims allegedly groped and harassed women in a similar manner as the assaults in Cologne, Germany on New Year's Eve. A group of male Russians took them aside to educate them that, quote, Cologne is 2,500 kilometers south of here. The refugees tried to flee but were quickly captured by the Russians. They then took them out to the street and gave them a beating they will remember. Police arrived to break up the fight, but locals report that they threw a few punches at the refugees before arresting 33 of them. 18 refugees were in such bad condition they had to be taken to the hospital. Police decided to let the beating slide and did not file a report. The only thing they could confirm was that there was, quote, a mass brawl involving refugees, unquote. Now, my friends, if you're like me, your number one priority in life is making sure Muslims never get injured. We want to make sure they're never hurt, never roughed up, they're never the victims of violence, and so we need to make sure they get the hell out of Western countries. As long as they're here, they're going to be brutalized. And since we want them to be safe, then we want their third world asses back in the third world. Anything I just said not make sense? I'm only concerned with Muslim safety. Item from the Economic Collapse blog. You remember how much stocks went down when the first dot-com bubble burst? Well, it's happening again. And tech stocks are already down more than $500 billion since the middle of 2015. On Friday, the tech-heavy NASDAQ dropped to its lowest level in more than 15 months. It's now fallen more than 16% from the peak of the market. But of course, some of the biggest names have fallen much more than that. Netflix is down 37%. Yahoo down 39%, LinkedIn is down 60%, and Twitter is down more than 70%. If you go back through previous articles, you'll find that I specifically warned about Twitter again and again. Irrational financial bubbles like this always burst eventually, and many investors that got in at the very top are now losing extraordinary amounts of money. Unquote. Item from the End of the American Dream blog. If you are a Christian, you'd better brace yourself for great persecution. It's gotten very little attention from the mainstream media, but federal authorities have uncovered an ISIS plot to shoot up a Detroit megachurch. 21-year-old Khalil Abu Rayyan of Dearborn Heights, Michigan, told authorities he actually intended to take a gun into a very large church in Detroit that can seat up to 6,000 people and start killing Christians. He's been charged with supporting the Islamic State and with, quote, illegally having a firearm while using a controlled substance. Abu Rayyan actually admitted, since he cannot be part of the jihad in the Middle East, that he would, quote, do my jihad over here, unquote. As I've warned so many times before, ISIS terrorists are already here, and what we've seen so far is just the beginning, unquote. My friends, I've asked this question innumerable times. I'll ask it again. How can someone like Khalil Abu Rayyan kill people in Michigan if there were no Muslims in Michigan? You chew on that question. We'll take a commercial break.
We all know that our government is out of control. What are the point of people in it? How can we, the people, bring it back to the people's servants, not the people's masters? Liberty Forum and the Freedom Rider says officials in government must be made accountable for their actions. AccountabilityRevolution.com is the place to go to learn how you can actually make that happen. Become their judges, not their slaves. AccountabilityRevolution.com.
Great Plains Power has been providing reliable electrical power systems in the Rocky Mountain area since 1992. Our systems rely on the sun to help make you self-reliant for your power needs. Solar energy can be scaled to fit any situation, from complete power independence to backup power for the short term. Our expertise focuses on standalone power, but we have extensive experience with utility interactive systems as well. Custom-tailored capabilities as modest as emergency lighting all the way to commercial-scale power. Great Plains Power is a full-service company. We service everything we sell. We provide and design turnkey packages, custom-designed system, and parts for do-it-yourself. With more than 20 years of specialized experience at your disposal, let us know what your power concerns or goals are. Reach us by phone or the internet. Call 303-239-9963. That's 303-239-9963. Or go to GreatPlainsSolar.com. Now this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21. Article 4. The right of the people to be secure.
Guys, while I'm on
in their
commercial,
houses,
I don't get a penny
and
for
effects
promoting this
against
book, but it's
unreasonable
absolutely
purchase and
essential
shall not be
read,
violated.
especially
And no
in an
warrant
election
shall be
year.
issued but
Ann
upon
Coulter,
probable
Adios
cause,
America,
supported
buy
by
the book,
oath
read
or
it. Parts of it are
affirmation,
pretty
and
grisly,
particularly
but that just
describing
means
the
it's
places
more
to be
important
searched
for you to
and
read
the
it.
person
So
or
get it,
thing
read it.
to be seized.
Back on the air now.
Piccolo's restaurant in Denver reminds us that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver is not only the best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo.
And I'm back, Howard Riell. The show is called Riell Truth, my friends. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today. A lot of things that Glenn Beck says I really, really like. And a lot of things he says I really don't like. Wild Bill for America shares that opinion. Let's listen. Here we go.
Hello everybody, Wild Bill for America here. And Glenn Beck just stuck a great big knife in the back of the Tea Party, and you can bet the enemies of freedom will be using that to further destroy patriotism in America. A few days ago, I did a video about Beck's outrageous statement that Donald Trump is Saul Alinsky, a satanically evil man who developed a plan to systematically destroy America's prosperity, national security, and moral standards. Anyone can see that Trump has built American prosperity and has done more to boost the economy than all the other candidates combined. But then the very next day, Glenn Beck not only doubled down on stupid, he became the Benedict Arnold of the Tea Party. Believe it or not, Glenn Beck said that if you are Tea Party and you support Trump, then you are a racist. A racist. That is MSNBC crap. Outrageous. Beck went on to say that if you are a Tea Party member who supports Trump, then your only problem with Obama is his skin color. Well, listen up, Beck. I've been a Tea Party man since the day it started. I've traveled and spoken at events from Florida to California, and I can tell you from personal experience that there isn't a racist bone anywhere in the Tea Party. But you already knew that, didn't you, Mr. Beck? From the day that good men and women came together to take a stand for America, to return her to her roots of honest government, the enemies of freedom have slandered us as racist. We have fought and worked for years to overcome that lie. The number one assault against the Tea Party is the left's baseless accusations of racism. And you just gave them exactly what they need to hurt the Tea Party Americans more than ever. Glenn Beck, Tea Party insider, admits that the Tea Party is racist and only opposes Obama because he's black. Shame on you, Beck. You know full well that the Tea Party is not a racist organization, otherwise you would not have used us to promote your rallies. It's the Tea Party that made your events successful, Mr. Beck, and you pocketed a lot of money off the Tea Party. But now you have become the Benedict Arnold of the Tea Party. You lost me as a friend with that idiotic Saul Alinsky crack, but now you've made an enemy with this hateful sabotaging of the good men and women of the Tea Party who have done so much for you. I will no longer support anything by Glenn Beck. He has proven himself to be untrustworthy, two-faced, and will stoop as low as MSNBC in selling out his own friends. One of the keys to success is knowing who to trust and cutting ties with those who you cannot trust. I am encouraging good men and women to forward this video to every Tea Party group in America. We cannot afford to be allies with men who sell us out for their own political purposes. Mr. Beck has failed to live up to Tea Party standards of honesty, integrity, and loyalty. This is Wild Bill for America. Thank you for watching, and America bless God again.
Thank you, Wild Bill. I love listening to his videos so much that I'm going to do you a favor. And on the next segment, I'm going to play a third Wild Bill video because they are that important. And we've got to listen to what he's saying. Item from the Washington Post, Dateline: Concord, New Hampshire. On the eve of the New Hampshire primary, Hillary Clinton's quest to become the country's first female president has encountered an unexpected problem. She's having trouble persuading women, young and old, to rally behind her cause. The latest sign came Tuesday when a new CNN WMUR survey here showed Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont beating Clinton among women by 8 percentage points, which represents a big shift from the results last week in the Iowa caucuses, where Clinton won women by 11 points, unquote. My friends, Hillary Clinton is making women look good, and I'll tell you why. Women are increasingly rejecting Hillary Clinton, which shows that women have high intelligence. Item from Tom Hartman writing at Truth Out. I quote, "You need to know this. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, will cost our nation nearly 500,000 jobs. That's the conclusion of a new report from economists at Tufts University Global Development and Environmental Institute. And according to that report, our jobs being shipped overseas isn't the only reason why we should be concerned about the TPP. Researchers said the claims about the TPP will boost economic activity in the U.S. are based on unrealistic assumptions. They also predicted that the TPP, aka SHAFTA, will lower our GDP over more than 0.5 point over the next decade and decrease labor's share of income by 1.3%, which would worsen income inequality in the United States. In other words, shipping our jobs to low-wage nations will take money out of the pockets of U.S. workers just to pad the bank accounts of corporate executives. Even the projections about how this deal will help developing nations appear to be wildly overstated. In this report, researchers estimated that a few of the nations involved in the TPP would gain a negligible boost from 1 to 3% of GDP. However, they said, businesses in participating countries would strive to become more competitive by cutting labor costs, thereby seeking higher short-term profits while undermining efficiency and productivity in the long term. In other words, businesses in those nations would follow in the footsteps of U.S. corporations by shipping jobs to even lower-cost countries and screwing their workers at home. And these concerning statistics only add to worries about workers' rights, environmental regulations, and national sovereignty. No matter which way you look at it, the TPP is a bad deal for workers, and the projected benefits simply don't add up. We must continue to pressure Congress to keep SHAFTA from becoming reality so that we can keep U.S. jobs, regulations, and sovereignty here at home." Unquote. Item from the End of the American Dream blog: "Are you living the American dream?" If so, you should consider yourself to be very fortunate, because most Americans are not. In fact, as you'll see below, a new survey has found that there is nowhere on the entire planet where the average wage earner is making enough money to live the American dream. Once upon a time, the United States had the largest and most prosperous middle class in the history of the world. But now the middle class makes up a minority of the population. 51% of all American workers make less than $30,000 a year, and poverty is growing rapidly. The American dream is essentially dead, and even the mainstream media is starting to figure this out. Unquote. So, my friends, if a Democratic administration over the past 7+ years has deadened our economy, destroyed jobs, shipped jobs overseas, done everything they can to take money out of Americans' pockets, then why would you ever think about voting for a Democrat again? Item from Reuters, Dateline Amsterdam. The Netherlands has stepped up the monitoring of traffic crossings on its frontier, a government minister said on Monday, as countries across Europe move to tighten border controls in response to an unprecedented migrant crisis. The move follows a decision last September to deploy mobile border guard units along roadways and railway lines to intercept migrants and separate them from asylum seekers. These measures helped, but we were still seeing a rising number of smugglers being arrested, and you're seeing more people coming from safe countries who aren't eligible for asylum, unquote. In other words, they let the migrants in, and now they regret it. We'll take a break. More Riell Truth ahead, and we got a caller on the line.
Howdy, folks. Have you ever thought about having your own backyard chickens? Now you have a source for certified organic, no GMO, no soy chicken feed. HappyHens.biz can even deliver, or you can pick up. Call me, Tim.
All right, guys, all done. Please share this video. I'll see you tomorrow.
Or go to happyhens.